All right, now let's shift gears real quick and let's jump into a little cheat sheet for the draft process. Very, very similar approach. Okay, what we did, like I said, we included our top 100 prospects from our PTA big board. And what we did was we put where they rank on our PTA big board. Okay, and then also what school they went to. Okay, we got it broken down into positions here. So you'll notice here right off the bat, when you look at offensive tackle, there are a lot of offensive tackles in the top 100. I said the other day, and I hope people didn't take it the wrong way. I said, if I had to put money on what position we drafted with the 52nd overall pick, my money would probably be on tackle because there's a lot of really good tackles in this draft. And we know how Goody loves drafting tackles and kicking them inside, right? So that's kind of where I would probably put my money on where they would pick. But let's run through the list, same as we did with the free agents here, and see what everybody else thinks. So let's start with offensive tackle. Here are the players. Spencer Fano out of Utah in the 9 spot. Francis Mawaga out of Miami at 11. You got Caden Proctor out of Alabama in the 17 spot. You got Monroe Frilling out of Georgia at the 27 spot. At 35, you got Caleb Lomu, however you say the name there, out of Utah. So that's Spencer Fano's, that's his teammate. 38, you got Blake Miller out of Clemson. You guys double check the colleges because it gets really, really tricky when I'm trying to compile the list because of all the transfer portal stuff. It'll pull up where they played college the year before, and God knows there's not a player that's staying at the same university 2 years in a row, right? Welcome to 2026. Blake Miller out of Clemson, we've mocked him a couple times. So you notice we got him in the 38 spot. That's a guy that if he's sitting there at 52, it's going to be hard to pass up on him. There were several mock drafts we did where Blake Miller was hands down our best prospect on the board when we picked. Okay, 49, you got Jennings Dunker out of Iowa. 52, you got Manasi Itete, if I'm saying it right, out of Arizona State. You got Ty Lofton out of the University of Virginia at the 55 spot. Then at 72, you've got Deuce Lemieux out of Arizona. And 87, you got Austin Barber out of Florida. So, again, you got a pretty good little group to pick from. Now, the problem is every other team in the NFL is putting top priority on tackles as well, right? So, these guys may go quick. But just on the surface, looking at these, comparing apples to apples, offensive tackles seem to be fairly loaded, all right? So, look for the Packers to potentially take a tackle here early in the draft. We'll see how that shakes out. Moving on to defensive tackle. This goes hand in hand with the conversation that Chris was just having in the chat. Defensive tackles at number 21, you got it says Tyleek McDonald. Is that right? Is that really his name? Yeah. So it's that name is wrong there. What are we doing? That's bad wrong. I got to straighten that out. So I think it means Caden McDonald. He did not play for he played for Ohio State, right? So I think that's Caden McDonald, if I remember correctly. You guys throw the name in the chat so everybody knows. I don't have time to look it up. Well, actually, I probably could. Let me just roll up real quick to the draft board. Because he is, Caden McDonald. So I need to get that changed. I'll make a note there to edit that out. So Caden McDonald is the top defensive tackle. All right. And he's out of Ohio State, if I remember correctly. Just to double check. Yes, that's correct. All right. So Caden McDonald won there in the 21 spot. 23, you got Caleb Banks out of Florida. 31, Peter Woods out of Clemson. 33, Kristen Miller out of University of Georgia. You guys know that's been kind of my guy early on. We'll see if it finalizes or not. 41, you got Lee Hunter, all right? And then it drops all the way down to 91 with Darrell Jackson out of Florida State. And then you've got 99, Domonique, Big Citrus, Orange there, okay? So when you look at the defensive tackle spot, what do you notice, guys? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in the top 50, right? And then only 2 more remaining in the top 100. So when we pick at 53 or 52, when we pick at 52, if all of those guys, McDonald, Banks, Woods, Miller, Hunter, and Jackson and just Hunter are all gone when we pick at 52, it's going to be a reach to go get Darrell Jackson or Dominic Orange. Okay. That's why I say it doesn't really line up. Now, if they're there at 84, that feels a little more palatable. But again, what you're noticing is when you compile all the information, both in free agency and the players that we like in free agency, and you look alongside the defensive tackles in the draft, what you're finding is probably going to need to be a little bit aggressive if you want to go get a D tackle. Now, the question becomes, is that our top priority? I don't feel like we struggled last year mainly because we didn't have strong defensive tackle play. I think the reason that we struggled was because of injuries, one, but our offensive line. So I definitely put offensive line as a bigger need. So with that being said, you do have to take into consideration the lack of talent at the defensive tackle position in this specific draft. Therefore, you might be, if you're going to get a defensive tackle, you might want to be a little more aggressive in free agency. And it just so happens you might be able to get an Onyemata or a Calais Campbell for a discounted rate, and they're considered our best defensive tackles in free agency. If Logan Hall, because of his youth and his ascension right now in the league, he's not been an elite player, but he's getting better every year. If that skyrockets his market value, then why not go out and get one or two of the other guys at a cheaper rate, right? And now you bolster the defensive tackle position, and you don't have to reach at 52 for a Darrell Jackson, right? Those are the type of things that I try to take into consideration whenever we're breaking down the draft process. And this is why we get into both draft and free agency before those two eras even hit. Or some people going, oh, it's too early to talk draft. It's never too early to talk about the draft, because these are the type of exercises you can do to really get a grab on where the market is, both in free agency and essentially what a market is in the draft as well. So that's kind of what I'm coming away with at the defensive tackle position. Now, moving on to stack backer. Sonny Styles, and again, these are in no particular order in terms of needs. We're just kind of going through the list as it sits on the page so we don't skip over anything. Sonny Styles in the number 8 spot. Arvell Reese at 14. C.J. Allen at 37. Jack Golday at 48. Anthony Hill Jr. at 61. Jacob Rodriguez at 65. Deontay Lawson at 76. Jared Trotter at 93. And Torin York at 95. So what you're seeing with Stackbacker is there's a lot to choose from there, guys. You're probably going to have a good Stackbacker fall in your lap. Definitely at 84, but possibly at 120. I think we're picking at 120. You guys double check that for me. But there's a good chance that either Jared Trotter, isn't it supposed to be Josiah Trotter? What is going on with my system, man? I double checked everything and then did a final copy, and evidently AI completely screwed up this list for me. Wonderful. Anyway, Trotter at 93 on the list. I just need to remove the colleges and have them double check the names, I guess. But with Trotter at 93, I want to make sure that lines up. Yeah, 93, and then York at 95. What I would think I would want to do at Stackbacker is hold off until pick 120 and see if one of those guys falls. And who knows, maybe Deontay Lawson, maybe he falls, right? Maybe Jacob Rodriguez falls in your lap. I doubt it. But what if one of those two guys fall in your lap at 120? So when people say, are you really going to draft a Stackbacker? If one of those guys falls in the right spot, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And if you don't think it's important, go back and watch the tape and watch tight ends. What's his name? Colston Loveland burnt our butt on those crosser routes all day long against Chicago. Now some of that was the DB's faults as well, not hammering down enough on the coverage as it hits that what we call the Mabel side, right? Like there was one point we had 3 defenders essentially playing like a Mabel coverage. And if you wonder what Mabel is, it's basically you've got 3 zones covered along the sideline, and he still fitted in the window. And it's not because Caleb made an absolutely great throw. It's because Keyshawn was lollygagging and dragging his ass to the play. And it's like, what are we doing here? So again, it's not just on the stack backers, but if you get a player where you can improve that position, whether it's a Devin Lloyd or somebody in free agency like we talked about, and they don't make that play, we maybe win that game. You see what I'm saying? So these things, they do tally up. They add up. So that's the stack backer position. So again, when we looked in free agency, we like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players. That includes Quay Walker at the right price. We're like 6. And then here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 or 10 players there. So no reason to try to push the envelope on Stackbacker. Let the board come to you there. You don't have to reach. And same thing in free agency. You don't have to overpay for it. That's why it's like, why not just lowball a couple of these guys like Leo Chenal or somebody like that? And if you get a great deal on them, awesome. You upgraded the position and you saved a bunch of money in the process. So that makes sense. All right, moving along to let's go to tight end before we get to cornerback. So at the tight end position, you got Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. He's in the 18 spot, and then it drops all the way outside of the top 50. So Sadiq is hands down the best tight end in this draft as the board sits here on February 14th right now. Then outside of the top 50, you got Eli Stowers from Vandy. 58, you got Max Clare from Ohio State. 79, you got Michael Trigg from Baylor. 84, you got Jack Andres from Cal. And then 85, you got my boy Tanner Kazoil at Houston. The reason I say it's my boy, multiple mock drafts, we were able to get Tanner Kazoil at 120 and even later. If you can get the 85th best prospect according to our board at 120, run the damn card. It's too good of a value there. And that's going to help you bolster that 12 personnel. Now, back to the free agent talk on tight end, right? When we broke down the free agents on tight end, I can't even remember who was on the list. I don't have them broke down on my cheat sheet here. Already closed that other one out. But you guys go back and give a look at that video and see what we had. I'm trying to think. It was people like Travis Kelce was one, right? I think it was 4. We had 4. That was the number I was looking for. We have 4 players on that list. And here at tight end in the draft, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with one potentially being a late round gem, right? So that's kind of how the tight end position shakes out in that regard. Let's move on now to cornerback. At cornerback, you've got a flurry of players in the top 100. You got Mansour Delaney out of LSU in the 7th spot. At 13, you got Jermod McCoy from Tennessee. At 20, you got Avian Terrell out of Clemson. 29, you got Colton Hood. That was Jermod McCoy's teammate at Tennessee. All right. And just a little inside football here. You guys know I keep up with Tennessee a lot. I got a good buddy. Shout out to Boogie Bentley, who's got an awesome show on YouTube if you like UT football. I follow them really, really closely because it's a college that's close to where I live, and I like to kind of keep up with that and in the local area. And Jermod McCoy was supposed to be like hands down the best corner going into the draft. Well, he suffered a knee injury at the end of 2024, and there was rumors he was going to come back. He's going to come back. He's going to come back. Okay, he'll be back this week. Oh, it might be 2 or 3 more weeks. He never did play this year. So it sounds like he just played it safe, held off until all right, let me just go ahead and get into the draft process. I think it's a good move. You got to play it safe. And I know it probably ticked off some Tennessee fans, but it is what it is, man. You don't want to risk your whole future to go out there and, and in my opinion, play college when you're basically, if you're coming back too early and you ruin your career, you're leaving a lot of money on the table long term, right? So Jermod McCoy was supposed to be the guy. He didn't play. Colton Hood really stepped up. So keep an eye on Colton Hood at 29. 34 is one of our draft crushes, Chris Johnson. We drafted him several times. Same thing with number 40, D'Angelo Pons. I'd be okay with either of those guys at 52. Would love that. I think Colton Hood, anybody above Chris Johnson at 52, probably going to be gone. Even Johnson and Pons might be gone by then. Then you got Keontez Abney. He is, I think, out of Arizona State, if I remember correctly. So keep an eye on him at 43. Brandon Cease, I think is how you say the name, out of South Carolina. He's in the 44 spot. That's your top 50 corner. So you got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cornerbacks in our top 50 on our PTA big board. Then outside of the top 50, you got Caden Scott. I want to say Caden Scott is the versatile player. I could be wrong there. You guys go double check that. But when it comes to the cornerback position, there's one of these guys that we threw in the blue and listed them as versatile because they can play safety as well. Trying to find him here. Maybe he's on down the list. Anyway, just look for that. If they've got next to our position on the PTA big board, if you see a V, if it's a dash V, that's what that means, okay? It means they're a versatile player. They may just be a slot corner. They may be able to kick around to all different spots, so just double-check that, okay? And then you got at 78, you got Davison Igbinosun out of Ohio State. I think we took him in the 84 spot once, right? And we really like that pick. So these guys are kind of in that range around 84. And then you've got it's supposed to be Julian Neal there. We'll get that list straightened out. In the number 80 spot out of Arkansas. And then 81, you got Chandler Rivers out of Duke. Chandler Rivers was much higher on our board before, okay? He was much higher on our board before. And he has since dropped since like Dane Brugler released his top 100 and Daniel Jeremiah put out a top 50. And then since we added Tankathon in as well. So Chandler Rivers probably going to be more around that 84 range as opposed to 52 where we had taken him before, okay? Now, moving on to centers. Guys, there's only 4 guys on the list here, right? Slim pickings. And again, in free agency, we talked about this as well. There's only 2 guys in free agency we like. So you got 6 centers that you feel like could make an impact, in my opinion, could make an impact for the Green Bay Packers this year. Connor Lew, however, he's got an injury. He's at the top of our list at 58, but he's coming back from the ACL. Keep in mind, he won't be ready. I'll be very, very surprised if he's ready in September. It'll probably be closer to October or November if he does play at all this year. So do your own research on Connor Lew's injury. Outside of that, it drops all the way down to 71 with Jake Slaughter from Florida, 82 Brian Parker out of Duke, and then 89 Patrick Coogan out of Indiana. Or, yeah, that's right. Indiana. I don't know why I put Indy, but yeah. Indiana Hoosier. So Pat Coogan, too, if I remember correctly, he played for Notre Dame a couple years ago. So, that was one of those guys that they said that guy will help us win a national championship, and he did. So he's in the 89 spot. So what do you got? You got Tyler Linderbaum and Connor McGovern in free agency, and then you got put Connor Lew to the side for a minute. You got Jake Slaughter, Brian Parker, and Patrick Coogan. So really, you've only got 5 to choose from. You better go get your damn center, and you better get aggressive. Day one, Xavier McKinney type stuff. And what I mean by that is don't waste no time. As soon as free agency opens, here's our best offer. We'd love to sign you today. What do you think? Don't go, hey, would you be interested in coming to Green? Well, what's the number? Yeah, we'll get back to you. You better go figure out the center position right freaking now. Unless they got something going on behind the scenes we don't know about and Zach Tom's going to kick the center and it's already shored up, you better go fix it right now. Because I'm telling you, if you're not aggressive in free agency and you don't go get a Tyler Linderbaum or a Connor McGovern, and then you get in the draft, you go, well, the board really doesn't line up. We don't want to reach at 52 for Jake Slaughter, and you come back at 84 and Pat Coogan's gone too. Now you're going into 2026 with the same exact problem you had last year, a struggling center position. So center is one of those earmark it guys like, hey, we need to attack that. We need to get that straightened out, which is all the more reason to go after Tyler Linderbaum. Again, I'd be okay with Connor McGovern, but I would love to see him go after Tyler Linderbaum. All right, and keep in mind, guys, we said this last year about Drew Dahlman, all right? And some people agreed with it and some people disagreed with it. Well, Drew Dahlman got signed by the Bears, and what did their offensive line do this year? It took a huge step forward. So that's frustrating. That's very, very frustrating. It's just like the draft. We talked about the draft process yesterday and how, you should have took Luther Burden over Matthew Golden. I love Matthew Golden. I think he's going to be a great player. He may end up being better than Luther Burden, but all signs indicated Luther Burden was a better football player. Like you could go back and look at our board. I'm not saying this in hindsight because Luther Burden had a better year than Matthew Golden. I'm saying it's because what the damn draft board said. If our draft board said it, how is Goody's board so far in the opposite direction, right? Maybe he's got more athletic ability. That could be the case. Maybe that's a cluster buster. Maybe they had the same grade on those guys. It is what it is. But you go, Clayton, that's just one pick, and that's a fair argument. And you jump down to the second round pick. We took Anthony Belton in the second round, right? 2 spots before they took Ozzie Trapillo. Ozzie Trapillo was ranked 70-something on our board. Anthony Belton was in the 120s. Did we just luck up on the first 2 picks, guys? That's not luck. Again, the board is doing what the board's supposed to do. My question becomes, how did we miss on those guys so bad? And again, it doesn't mean Anthony Belton can't be a great football player. It doesn't mean Matthew Golden can't be a great football player. But after 1 year, first of all, before they played a year in the NFL, the board said these 2 guys are better than these 2 guys, and we got it completely ass backwards, right? And then, let's see what they do. And you guys heard me on draft night. Hey, man, let's trust Goody here. He knows how to evaluate offensive line talent. And at the end of the season, Anthony Belton grades out in the 40s. You've got Ozzie Trapillo playing good football, much better football than Anthony Belton, according to the statistics, the analytics, the metrics. And then you had Luther Burden had a much greater impact in year 1 than Matthew Golden. And spare me the we didn't use Matthew Golden the right way talk. He was second on the team in targets, if I remember correctly. It wasn't that he was underutilized. He just wasn't pro-ready right out of the gate. And again, it doesn't mean he won't be pro-ready this year. He may scream past Luther Burden, and I hope that's the case. But the early indicators are we should have taken Luther Burden in that situation. If that makes sense. I know it's not a popular opinion. Again, if you see it, you got to say it. I don't want this to just be a show where we just always go, the Packers are perfect. They did everything great. And I damn sure don't want to come across like I know more than them. That's not what I'm trying to do here. Just simply, again, that's why we provide the draft board link to everybody in our Patreon group. You guys do your own research. Check it out. Get the PFF grades right there attached from the 25 season on the 25 draft board as well. So you can kind of see how they played at the NFL level. Let's move on to guard real quick. We'll wrap up. Guard in the draft, you got Logan Lone at the 15 spot. You got in the 46 spot, you got Emmanuel Pregnon, okay, at 46. Outside of the top 50, you got Chase Basantis at 73. So when you look at the guard position game, in free agency, we found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that we'd say that would help our football team. 7 in free agency, right? In the draft, only 3 in the top 100 at guard. So what's that tell you? You're going to go shore up a guard spot. If you decide to move on from Aaron Banks, and I hope we do, if you decide to do that, you've got plenty of people that you could sign as guards in free agency. So you don't have to reach for one in the draft. Again, you can find those guys in free agency. So hopefully that makes sense. And I see we got us a super chat and a couple other comments. So we'll get to those, but that's kind of a quick look. I'll try to clean up that list because obviously AI doing the revision there completely screwed up some of the universities. But you guys, I know the players, the number and the players' names are right for the most part because I put those in manually other than the first names, which they screwed that up as well when I had them added in for time's sake. So if you guys are watching this back later, let us know, how do you feel about the draft board cheat sheet and our top 100? What position should we attack? Anything draft related, hit us up in the comments. Let us know what you think about that list. Make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, click the bell icon so you catch all of our future live streams. We appreciate y'all.